Today I fucked up by getting baited into watching a very sickly porno. The title should say it all really, but if you want some backstory, here we go. So, a couple of days ago, I'm at school and with my mates. We're all having a laugh and cutting loose as it's our lunch break. Then one of my friends says, "You guys seen Two Girls One Cup?" I see some other friends cringing and giggling and my ignorant ass says, "What's that?" I get looked at like I was a 4-year-old. "You are joking, right?" my friend says. I look at him deep in the eyes and say an underwhelming, "No." After that, on my way back up to lessons I get explained that it was a really funny video on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok so I was none the wiser. I get told to Google it when I got home. Now, what I didn't know was that it didn't even originate from TikTok but in fact originated some 14 years earlier. I sit down, turn on my iPad, crack my knuckles and type, "Two Girls One Cup" full video. By the time I clicked, it was too late. This post is tagged NSFW because the video is super gross and is likely to end with chronic nightmares and endless projectile vomiting. I don't recommend that you search this up, but hey, the world is your oyster. Too long didn't read, I got baited into watching the most disgusting porno of all time. Black salami, blue waffles, lemon party, those are all names to avoid edit. Other names to avoid: WH0 Ligon, Tuber Girl Kenny 070287, 2 Kids 1 Sandbox God _of _ Walmart, Im Swinging, Comdenk Lord, 1 Man 1 Jar, This Is Not Okay, Zana 5, vid of a guy coming towards the camera on a dirt bike. The follow-up is The Bad Thing, Jiggle Mobster, Mr. Hands, The Poor Horse, May Pomkeys, vid of a guy eating other guy's poop straight from the ass, TF man. Some guys say cake farts too, but they aren't that weird, like they are normal compared to THEONs above, and also milk farts. Zerg, 2 Guys 1 Hammer, and a vid like that with a screwdriver dream like it's over. Emo Cutter Girl the Master Blaster, Knife Party Forgetful Kaiju, Octopus Girl Me, Eel Soup, also the Toy Box Killer transcript. We live in the shadows to serve the light, so that everybody else can have a peaceful living. For own mind peace on T search these up. There are explanations for all a bit lower in the com thread. WHOTF gave this a wholesome reward, you madman. You madman, another Hugs Award. I got baited into watching the most disgusting porno of all time. I'm fairly confident this doesn't even crack the top 30 most disgusting pornos of all time. Two Girls One Cup was disgusting for a young me, but the sheer WTFness also made it fascinating at the same time. One Man One Jar, now that shit went straight through disgusting and into traumatic territory. Ah, a classic. Those girls are the most famous soft serve slingers on the internet. It's one of the most famous disgusting things on the internet. Wait. So you tell me there is a whole generation out there that doesn't know about Two Girls One Cup, Lemon Party, Blue Waffle, Goatsy and other jewels of the internet? Remember One Man, One Jar? Kinda wish I was part of a generation that didn't know about these sites, haha. Today I fucked up by getting stuck. My employer has had a couple of high-profile sexual misconduct charges in the last year. As such, anyone who is in charge of other people is taking that stuff extra seriously. My individual department is rather blue-collar, and almost all guys. When there's no one around, the sexual jokes happen all the time. Also, the spaces that my department works in are usually loud and gross, so the important people rarely come in. My department makes sure all the machinery runs. There's a bunch of pumps and motors and stuff. Today, 2 co-workers and I were told to go turn on a water pump. We made sure that the inlet valve was open, but the outlet valve was in a tight spot under a water chiller. The most experienced guy, out of us 3, climbed around the back of the water chiller to crawl underneath it. Saying a guy I worked with a couple years ago said that this is the only way to get at this valve. We then tried turning the pump on, and it started making noises like it would if that valve wasn't open fully. So we turned it off and decided that I would verify that valve is open properly. I looked, and the water chiller had a hole big enough to fit in above that valve. and it looked close enough that I could reach it. I'm a little skinnier than the other guy, my arms are longer than his, and I'm also more flexible than most of the guys I work with. It's not unreasonable to think that I could get somewhere he couldn't. I bent into that hole and reached for the valve. Could almost reach it, so I slid a little bit forward. I slid a little more forward then. I grabbed the valve handle, and made sure it was properly opened. It was already. That pump was having some other problem. I then tried to slide out. That's the moment I realized that I was now wedged between a couple of I-beams with nothing to push on to slide out. Fucked up. I told the two co-workers I was with that I fucked up, and I was stuck. They then tried to lift me out, but couldn't. So co-worker 1 went to get help and some straps. A come along was one idea if we couldn't work it out. Co-worker 2 stayed with me to make sure I stayed safe and conscious and stuff. He also took a picture, because it's a funny situation to be in. Then a bunch of people came down into the space to help. I can't look around to see who it is, and only 2 people are talking. I recognized the voice of my supervisor, who got behind me and noticed that the multi-tool on my belt was getting caught, and asked my permission to take my belt off. As he was taking my belt off, I realized I had what is hopefully a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I made sure to speak up loud enough that everyone could hear me. "What are you doing, step supervisor?" Normally, this would get a laugh from everyone who comes down there. This time, nobody laughed. Sometimes, I think I'm hilarious, but nobody else does. That's probably what happened. Too much time on Reddit or something. With a little bit of wiggling, eventually we were able to free me. When I got out, I looked around to see the 2 co-workers I was with, along with 2 of our supervisors who are both still part of the boys, and our department head who I thought had gone home already. The department head didn't approve of my joke. Now, I need to write a letter to his boss, a lady who's known for having a stick up her ass, explaining the joke I made and why I thought it would be appropriate to say that in the workplace. Too long didn't read, I got stuck and said the classic line, but didn't realize who was all in the room. Now I need to explain incest porn tropes to the lady who banned Titanic for being too sexual. Suggestions are appreciated. Picture, update. I had a sit down with my department head today. He explained that as department head, he can't let people make crude sexual comments to each other, especially not between a person and their direct supervisor. He also recognizes that it was a joke, and everyone in the room found it funny. However, I had no way of knowing who was all there. There could have been someone there who was offended by it. A letter explaining the joke to the lady who would have made the biggest thing out of it, is the best way he can think of to illustrate how I should watch my words. As for the letter, their boss has not been informed about what happened, and isn't expecting anything to come her way. That letter is a private matter between me, my department head, and his boss. I can't show it to anyone and neither can he, for privacy reasons. But I definitely 1000% wrote it out in the neatest handwriting I can do. As for the people mentioning OSHA, thanks for caring. My workplace follows a different standard than normal workplaces, and I was told the right way to reach the valve I was reaching for. If I had a normal job, there would definitely be a couple of things that are normal here that would be considered bad there. And you people saying that you recognize my uniform or workplace, you definitely don't. If I worked where it looks like I work, then making a public post about people being stupid there would be a bad thing. I would never do something like that. I'm sure that you wouldn't either, and if you did because you had a funny story, you wouldn't want everyone pointing out that you're employed where you're employed. That must have been scary, especially after they got that strap on. You always make sure to use plenty of lube, haha. I am an employment law attorney, so I get why they are shitting on you for the joke, but the joke was fucking hilarious. Well done. I get it too, especially in the context of recent high-profile cases, it makes sense. I'm lucky that I'll likely just get told to write the letter, with no real consequences. Be sure to attach your OSHA complaint to your letter. Just chalk it up to you being nervous about getting stuck and unsure of getting out, so you cracked a joke for reassurance and in a moment of stress you chose a slightly inappropriate joke. They'd have to understand that no matter how sticks are up their butt. Thanks, that's probably my best option. Was the story worth the consequences? I bet you it was, cause at least I got a good laugh out of it. Thanks. Afterwards the guys I work with all laughed at it too. Today I fucked up by framing an 8-year-old kid and ruining his life. Of course it wasn't actually today, this happened in the early 90s. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, the rest is exactly how it occurred. I was in 2nd grade and constantly getting into trouble. One day the teacher, Mrs. Jig, announced that it was time for SSR, silent sustained reading, and we were to pick a book and head out to the courtyard. I decided I was too cool for SSR, and that hiding under my desk for an hour was somehow better than reading in a sunny courtyard. So I hid. All the kids left the room. I overheard Mrs. Jig ask the parent assistant to make some copies of the pop quiz. Mrs. Jig headed outside with the class. I kept hiding and watched as the assistant came back, put the quizzes on the desk and went outside. I emerged from hiding and went over to Mrs. Jig's desk. This is when my impulsive 8-year-old brain truly began to shine. I took the teacher's adult scissors and cut the pop quizzes to bits. It was only after I was done that I even considered that I would get into trouble. So I put the teacher's scissors on Paul's desk. Paul had been mean to me a while ago, grabbed a book, slipped out the door to the courtyard, and sat up against the wall reading without anyone the wiser. Yet again the glory of my undeveloped brain shone. By the time SSR was over I had completely forgotten about cutting up the quizzes. The class was now seated at their desks inside and I was spacing out as usual when I heard the yelling start. Mrs. Jig. Jack, why did you do this? Oops. I realized I guessed wrong and left the adult scissors on Jack's desk, not Paul's. A small error that would echo for years. Jack, I didn't do it, Mrs. Jig. Mrs. Jig, don't lie, Jack, it will only make it worse. Jack, I didn't do it. Mrs. Jig, you're in trouble, Jack. Jack grabs the scissors and raises them towards the teacher's face. No, Mrs. Jig. You're in trouble. Holy fuck. I was completely unable to process what had just happened. Jack ended up getting restrained on the floor by the parent assistant and the vice principal, screaming the whole time about how he didn't do it. I didn't see Jack for a couple of weeks, and when he returned to school everyone called him Scissors Kid for the rest of the school year. The school shut down that summer. It had been closed before and only reopened that one year to accommodate overflow while construction on a new school was wrapping up. My class was split between several schools when we attended the next grade. I never saw most of them again. I forgot Jack's name and could only remember him as Scissors Kid. 11 years passed, and some things that should not have been forgotten were lost. History became legend. Legend became myth. I had just started college. One of my high school friends joined the army and was preparing to leave for Iraq. His parents invited me and another one of his friends over for a send-off dinner. His mother said a prayer before we started, asking God to keep her son safe. It's clear she's getting emotional. His dad tries to lighten the mood and follows up the prayer with a comment that he'll be just fine as long as he's got some scissors. The joke is lost on the other friend and I. The soldier's brother and parents start laughing and see that their inside joke needs some explaining. His mom starts to tell the story about how her son threatened his 3rd grade teacher with a pair of scissors. Thus began the biggest holy fuck moment of my life. Jack was Scissors Kid. Jack clearly didn't think the joke was funny and immediately starts denying cutting up the quizzes. His parents keep teasing him and obviously didn't believe their son. The guilt was too much. Jack was about to go to war, he might die. I had to come clean. Me, was this Mrs. Jig's class? Jack, how do you know that? I explained myself. Told the story of how I thought I was framing Paul. Jack told me I ruined his life, that they made him take anger management classes. His mom defended me, saying that I may have framed Jack but I didn't make him threaten the teacher's life. Jack went off to Iraq. We fell out of touch as most high school friends eventually do, but I'll never forget the insane serendipity that will forever link me to Scissors Kid. Too long didn't read. I framed a small child with anger issues, causing him to threaten his teacher's life, and I only came clean years later, right before he went off to war.